I love your stories, Sari. And who doesn't? So, curious, was it a time when you were a director and you realized the team wasn't going astray because of a business issue, but because of a cultural script they were in or a
Yeah.
pattern they were stuck in?
Yeah.
And what did you do with that?
Well, wouldn't. I'll take an example not of cultural script, but more of organizational script or team script.
Sure,
You know,
sure, sure.
within TA, we don't talk about script really. We talk about culture. So in the systemic TA, we have from structure and dynamics of groups and organizations that Byrne wrote. So
Mhm,
he talks about um, etiquette, program, and character.
mhm,
Etiquette being the values that guide us, and program being the success strategies or failure strategies, if you want, and character being the really the can is there room to be yourself within that
mhm,
team.
mhm,
So I remember being hired as a director of a global team, actually, but they'd had, I think, 4 or 5 leaders before me in 2 years or 3 years, something like that. And what happens if you see so many changes of leadership is that the team decides, actually, we don't need a leadership. We don't
mhm,
need leaders. We'll do it ourselves. And so I came in and it was really anarchy. So I was doing something, but then the team underneath was just deciding for themselves, basically. They'd made themselves unmanageable. And that had benefits for them. I guess they had the maybe illusion of, again, autonomy, but they forgot their interdependence because, of course, if you're a team, you have an interdependent contract with your leader, but also with other teams in the system. Because whatever you create as a team is the output you create as a team is the input for another team. So, and someone else's output is your input. So, uh, you know, this was a team that had decided we're autonomous to all costs and had forgotten actually you're in a systemic context, you're a network organization as a team. Um, so it was my job and challenge really to not to impose my leadership, but to make them aware of their interdependence again, and that they could win if they made a cooperation contract with me as a leader, and that they were losing out if they didn't.
mhm,
And yeah, that took some time. It took some hard decisions. For instance, one of the people in that team, one of the guys in that team had wanted my job. And so he was constantly sabotaging my leadership. So, that if you're a team leader, you have to consider the well-being of the team as a whole, not the individuals, only the individuals in it. So he was really limiting the capacity of that team to recreate that sense of interdependence as well, to refine their balance. And yeah, the hard decision is then you have to fire some people. In my case, I always try to give them a lead to new work
mhm,
because the people who leave your team are your best ambassadors or your worst ambassadors.
mhm,
Um, but it also took a lot of negotiation. What can you do with me as a leader, and what do I need from you as a team? Um, will you accept me as a leader? I think not many leaders ask that question because they're scared of the answer, but it's a very important question to ask.
mhm.
Um, yeah, so that was one of my toughest things because it was so ingrained. My toughest leadership positions, it was so ingrained the team was really important to the organization and to the organization's growth. But the people who'd been in that team had been there for a very long time. And all the leaders before me had failed. So this was quite a situation. But again, Pippi Longstocking to the rescue, huh? You don't know it's not possible, so you do it anyway.
Yeah. And so I'm curious now, you said etiquette, program, and character to start with. So something in that
Yeah.
context wasn't fitting in, yeah, especially the interdependence bit.
Yeah, I think if you would reduce it to an ego state model, I think they had really they'd shut out they'd excluded the parent ego state in the sense that, we don't need any parental influence
Yeah.
around here. And um, they didn't really have the capacity to play together anymore, if you want to put it that way. Yeah.
Interesting, Sari. And yeah, just very curious about that story. And many leaders, who hear our podcast, many leaders who I have experienced in my life, including me, have gone through such a scenario. This is not a strange scenario in a corporate life.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and you also said that many leaders have tried,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And what kept you going? What drove you? What was your physis which helped enable or unlock the situation for you personally?
Um, well, it's one of well, two things. One is um, I really believed in the team and I believed in myself. That really helped as well. But I also thought we had a higher purpose to fulfill. All of this, and it was really one of the genesis points for my transformational team coaching model, because
Mhm.
I really realized there, you have to start with purpose. What can we do together that we can't do alone? And in this case, because it was the global talent team, there was a huge project we had to do with an enormous sum of money involved, involving, for instance, creating a global performance management system, which had never been done before. Every country, 17 countries, all had their own performance management, but it made the exchange of talent impossible between countries. If you understand what I mean. So um, we had things to do together. And so I realized very quickly that I had to focus really on the aspiration, what can we do together? Because there's great things to be done. But ignore the gaming, but there's great things to be done. And to set a very clear structure of innovation, we're going to do this one year and then that next year and that next year. And um, and then to work on the structure. And the structural thing is really, we didn't have the right roles in the team. And in the end, we didn't have really clear decision making. So up till then, they'd done a lot of things informally, and whoever shouted loudest would get it. And then we moved into cooperation, and we really made cooperation contracts with, well, them with me, but them amongst each other, but also realizing that we were in a whole system of cooperation where we were bound by what the board was telling us. Basically, the board gave us a lot of money, but they said, make a global performance management system within 6 months. Now, you know as well as I know that it sounds like an impossible task, but the fact is that if you have less resources, you become very innovative. So we managed to do it. Everybody benefited. They all got promoted, including me, by the way. And so we won together, which is fantastic. Yeah.
It's such a lovely story, and also Thank you for taking us through the phase that you went through the journey. Um, I've heard your talks before. You speak about this word, meaningful chaos. In
Yeah.
simple terms, what does that mean for a team that feels like they are falling apart? How do you help them find the root of their trouble and build a new foundation?
Yeah. I think I speak of meaningful chaos as well to dispel one of the myths, both in organizational development and in transactional analysis. So, in TA, there is, I think, sometimes a myth that if everything is harmonious, then it's better. It's almost like that. So, as long as we stay okay, it's fantastic. Um, in my time, both as a director and as now 40 years of transactional analysis, Eric Burns spoke of group dynamics and he spoke of dysfunctional dynamics. Well, what I'll call them for simplicity's sake, red dynamics. So he talks about pressure, agitation, intrigue, and then he talks about cohesion as a green dynamic that holds the team together. And the myth, I think, in TA, but also in the wider OD world, is that we have to battle against red dynamics. So, reduce pressure, reduce agitation, reduce intrigue, and all will be well in the world. The fact of the matter is, I'm a specialist in innovation, in business innovation, product service innovation. I've done, but business innovation is really what I'm interested in. And if you want to do innovation, you need disruptive dynamics, because if there is no disruption, there's no innovation. So I think I chose the term meaningful chaos because I think we go through life, both our personal lives and our business lives, in cycles of harmony and chaos, harmony and chaos. Because if we don't renew ourselves, open and close our boundaries, any system will implode. Look at a sect. A sect is a closed system. They impose order, and it's a very strict order, but there's no innovation. It sounds funny when I say it, but there's no innovation. And in the end, every sect dies, they implode. The same is true in our own relationships, in families, in teams, in organizations, that we need to create meaningful chaos now and then and allow disruption, because without disruption, there's no life.
Lovely, lovely principle. So if you look at the yin and the yang, like you said, life is about fixing things. Could be one way to see it, but then it's also about redesigning them, as you just kind of talked about. So if you're looking at people who are listening, especially senior leaders who feel like they've reached a plateau, the professional journey is stalled, how can they use TA maybe to rewrite their script, life script maybe, and find a new chapter of growth at that point?
I think, we talk about script, life script in TA. So we talk about a story with a beginning, middle, and end that you created in early childhood and leads to a known payoff, just for the listener. So, and it feels a little bit when we talk about that in TA that there's something predetermined about that. You decide very early and you end with the same bass tone in the music of your life. Byrne had famously said, our job is to turn frogs into princes, and really to help people disrupt their script and choose a different ending. I think the same, and I don't think it's predetermined. I do think it's possible to create a different life story, and sometimes when leaders are stuck in their patterns, or they get bored, or they feel lifeless, it's because they have stopped this physis, this disruption in their life, and they have closed off perhaps parts of their child ego state, which is where your creativity and intuition resides. I work a lot with the hero's journey with leaders, so I help them really find the narrative that they've created about their life, and then really to help them create a more empowering story that is filled with life. That's what we got. And it's important to keep it.
And you model it with your dance that you mentioned, right?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anything else that you want to add to what all you told us about? Sorry, any comments at the end?
Well, I'm really, really delighted that Intact Academy and Human OS are going to partner to bring the executive coaching and team coaching training to India. We're going to start, the training is both a TA and organizations training, and it's an accredited coaching training. It's a master's program, so it's going to be fantastic to work together in that as well. So thank you very much.
And we really look forward to that, Sari. What an incredible conversation, Rick. I love the Leiden connection, plus all the different elements of the disruption that's required in order to grow and to put a new show on the road, so to say, the stories and personal example. It just goes to show no matter where we start, we're all searching for that clarity that we are seeking.
Absolutely. Sari's journey from a 17-year-old student to a global director proves that when you understand your why, you can lead anywhere in the world.
A big thank you to you, Sari, for joining us.
You're very welcome.
And thanks to you for listening. If you want to deep dive into your own origins, check out our sponsor, Human OS Growth by Design.
Keep seeking clarity, keep exploring your roots, and we'll see you next time on the OKR.